Well, it is 7:30 and this is our soft opening for the Great Small Works Spaghetti Dinner presents Art, Justice and Pasta, a benefit for building stories. My name is John Bell. I'm part of Great Small Works and I'm in Woodbury Lake in Vermont with all of these lanterns behind me. But the spaghetti dinner events, of course, depend upon spaghetti dinner, and the spaghetti gets cooked beforehand. So we're going to go to Red Hook, New York, upstate New York, in the kitchen of Great Small Works member Roberto Rossi. Hi.
Hello.
Who is cooking? How is it going, Roberto?
Good evening.
We published the ingredients for the pasta and your recipe, so
Wow.
maybe people are cooking with us.
Maybe the reason I posted this recipe instead of say another one is I always found it a very curious and kind of unusual way of preparing pasta. It's very simple, but it has it's probably a very basic principle in cooking. I'm not a cook. I'm a home cook, so everything I've learned I've just sort of learned by watching. But it's that you mix in the herbs into the pasta before you actually put in any kind of sauce.
Okay.
But just to review what the basics of the recipe are, I'm now going to turn my camera to this table, which I think you can see now. And I have some, it's the herbs you use are parsley, sage, rosemary, and basil. So I've chopped up some of the, actually the parsley. What I do with the parsley, it's usually bought in very large bunches, and you wind up not using it. So I chop it up and freeze it.
Oh, good.
And it stays nice and brittle if you use it real quickly. So this is my chopped parsley. And then the sage, which is a beautiful herb.
Wow.
Which we're lucky to grow here in Red Hook.
In your backyard, in your garden?
In the backyard.
Wonderful.
But again, you can use all these herbs can be bought at the store in any different kinds of qualities, organic, non-organic, or you can buy them dried. They work out in different ways depending on the quality of herbs you use, and you always find things that work for you. For instance, the frozen parsley really works for me. Cool. So I have the chopped parsley, the chopped sage, the chopped rosemary, and the rosemary is this other beautiful herb, which I'm sure everyone knows, extremely aromatic. And the basil here is all chopped up on my chopping board.
Great.
Also, that's also fresh. And those are the herbs that go into the seasoning.
Yes.
And then use Parmesan cheese.
Okay.
And you can buy obviously the pre-grated Parmesan cheese, or you can buy a chunk of American Parmesan cheese, and there's the Italian imported Reggiano cheese, which comes in chunks.
Okay.
And if you can either grate that, which creates a nice kind of sawdust, feathery kind of cheese, which is really good for some sauces. For this sauce, I like blending it in one of those Cuisinarts, and it makes it into a kind of nutty, chunky kind of cheese. And I think it goes really well with this sauce.
Do you try to get the better Parmesan cheese, or do you like?
I do pretty much because it has a very particular taste. A lot of people confuse the Romano cheese, which is a completely different kind of cheese from the Parmesan. You can use the Romano as well, just so you know. They really are different. Different aromas, but yes, I do use that.
Can I ask you a question? I have a romantic view of your mom, who's so beautiful and lovely. Is this like a recipe from your mom, or no? Okay,
no,
that's fine.
So the recipe is from my mother. She definitely passed it on to me.
Okay.
There's things that are original to her, but with a lot of Italian cooking, it's always very regional, and there is this whole course of authenticity. This is authentically Neapolitan and authentically that. And frankly, my mother is a New Yorker by now. She immigrated here when she was in her 20s. And her cooking is as sort of syncretic and draws from all these different not traditions, but from what she finds in New York in terms of ingredients.
Yeah.
So her cooking has adapted a lot to her ecosystem, which is the ecosystem of New York and the local herbs that are found here locally. The Parmesan cheese for many years was American. That's
Right.
that type we use, and only recently have we been using this Italian.
In about 4 minutes, we're going to go to the introducing building stories video. So I don't know if I'm holding you back from.
Well, let me throw the pasta into the water. It takes 12 minutes to cook.
Do you like De Cecco? Is the type of pasta important to you?
Well, you know, I wrote down the recipe shells. I'm happy to, I don't have shells today. I had them last week. I'm using to sort of penne rigate, which are the there's coarse grains. It's penne, basically.
Penne.
Penne, and those are over there. And now they're cooking, and I give it a stir. You always put a lot of salt in the water.
Right.
And give it a stir so they don't stick to the bottom or to each other.
Right.
And I'm going to use a timer, which is not what I generally do. I usually use I usually taste the pasta, but we're on a different kind of schedule
Yeah.
today. So.
And I was thinking, normally you make tons and tons of pasta for 100 people in our live spaghetti dinners,
right?
Which is interesting.
So otherwise, those aren't the only ingredients. Over here,
okay.
Just so you know, FYI, is a tomato sauce that's being cooked.
Aha.
With onion inside, and this is just pureed tomatoes out of the can.
Right.
And there are many ways for you to make your own pureed tomatoes. You know, you can. What I generally do is I chop up a nice fresh tomato, cook it until it's soft, and then pass it through a food mill. And what you get is that essence of tomato, and you toss out all the skin and seeds.
Right.
Boil that down, and you get that sort of tomato puree. But it's a lot faster, obviously, out of a can or these Italian brands for me. But totally easy to make at home as well.
What was that big white thing in the middle of the frying pan?
That was an onion.
Okay. Oh, you explained that.
It's sort of stewing in there. It's giving it sauce. It's giving its flavor. Then you toss the onion.
You toss it away.
I mean, for people who enjoy eating a sort of
okay.
onion.
Okay.
I'm not partial to that, but
okay.
Yes, you take it out of the sauce, and it's not itself part of the sauce. It's just there to give the tomatoes flavor.
Wonderful. I never knew that. That's very exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's great. So you're cooking the sauce. What you're going to take the onion out.
So what happens when we come back after, I guess, in a few minutes?
Yeah.
If the pasta is ready, I'll be straining it.
Okay.
And then before I put in the sauce, this is the whole thing. The pasta's sitting in the strainer, all steamy and getting kind of dry.
Okay.
Then you put in all the herbs, and they stick to the pasta, so that the herbs aren't part of the sauce and get lost. They actually adhere to the pasta. The cheese starts melting, and the pasta has a kind of a density and a flavor to it without the tomato sauce. And then the tomato sauce gets put on quite liberally, you know, and you want a nice runny tomato sauce. You don't want a thick one.
No.
No, not for this sauce. For other ones, you do.
Yeah, I never knew that about putting the herbs on first. You know, after all
that's
these
why I
years.
like this recipe. It's such an easy one and so basic, but of course you can also put in pine nuts, which are delicious.
Right.
But obviously pine nuts are not for everybody. They are an allergen.
Right.
So if it's something you can enjoy, just FYI, the recipe welcomes the use of chopped pine nuts as well, which I am not using tonight.
I think we're ready to, now that the cooking is underway, well, we wanted, as you know, and we're going to come back to you in a few minutes, like 3-4 minutes. We wanted to explain exactly what building stories is, because this, for those in the audience, this Great Small Works Spaghetti Dinner is a benefit for building stories. And this explanation will be by means of a You Are There video tour of our workshop and studio in Gowanus. And this video is made by Building Stories member Marina Zaplina. So we'll see you in a minute.
Okay.
What and who is building stories? We are a collective of artists, activists, musicians, writers, organizers, community builders, teachers, and scholars. Most importantly, we are a community of collaborators and friends who all know the power of art, theater, and puppetry for social healing and transformation. The many diverse members of the Building Stories Collective have created work that spans the most urgent and pressing social issues of our time. From creating art for the Sunrise Movement, to creating large-scale processional puppets for countless actions, to bringing puppetry animation into medicine and disability justice, to creating memorials and public mourning rituals for the 160,000 lives we have lost to COVID-19. Because artistic response keeps cultures together. And there's one thing that makes all of this work possible: our studio space.
Did you know that artists are essential workers?
Without space for creation, artists simply cannot work. So here's a quick 360 whirlwind tour of the artists and members who call the Building Stories Studio our creative home. Great Small Works was founded in 1995 by a collective of 6 artists, all veterans of bread and puppet theater, to create theater of high artistic quality and to keep theater at the heart of social life. Great Small Works believes theater is a model for participating in democracy. The People's Puppets of Occupy Wall Street was founded in Zuccotti Park, New York City in 2011. It continues on as a collective that helps other activists build beautiful and effective visuals for actions, driven by a vision that another world is possible. The Boxcutter Collective is a Brooklyn-based puppet company founded in 2016 as an extended family of puppeteers, painters, performers, builders, educators, workers, union organizers, and mischief makers. They write, build, and perform puppet shows with the aim of taking down the rotten empire, one cardboard spectacle at a time. Jacqueline Wade is a professional hybrid filmmaker, storyteller, actress, puppeteer, fabricator, and activist. She makes human rights documentaries, hybrid films, puppets, and installations. Harrison Green is a freelance puppeteer, actor, and musician. Along with his solo work, he also collaborates with Chinese Theater Works and has performed with the Boxcutter Collective. Ali Goss is a puppeteer and a puppet designer whose work explores transience, surveillance, and the uncanny. Their work spans marionettes, hand puppets, tabletop puppets, projection, and much beyond. Rachel Schragus is a cultural organizer who works amidst social movements. Most recently, she's worked as a visual strategy coach for Sunrise Movement and is currently working on a community history mind map of the ways anti-Semitism is deployed to maintain white supremacy. Raphael Mishler creates visuals for new live performance, including Club Thumb's Too Macho, numerous shows with the Foundry, and Lincoln Center Theater. Highlights include Heidi Schreck's What the Constitution Means to Me on Broadway and Taylor Mack's 24-decade history of popular music. And that's Building Stories. Thank you so much for your support.
So there we are. Thank you to Marina Saplina and Jenny Romaine and Stephen Kaplan and everyone else from Building Stories for making that video. Is Roberto back on board? Are you? Yes, there
Yes,
you are.
So I put the pasta in the water.
Yeah.
We need another 4 minutes.
4 minutes. Well, we have 4 minutes to talk about pasta or
pasta and stuff. Speaking of pasta and stuff, so we were talking a little bit about where this recipe is from, and yes, it's from my mother's kitchen, and I can't say I've done research around it to tell you what region of Italy this is from. I can say that there is a flavor to Italian cooking that's
right.
There are certain basic kind of ingredients you find over and over again, which you would say, oh, you're using tomatoes and garlic and olive oil.
Right.
For instance, you're using carrots, celery, and onion. You're chopping it up and you're frying it up and you're making that the base of your sauce. So there's certain signature sort of bases that are used: olive oil, capers, and olives being another one. So pancetta or bacon and olive oil and butter fried up, again with the carrots, onions, and celery. classic Italian kind of base. But then what you riff off of and build
Right.
on that base
Right.
changes from, you know, region to region, and
Right.
you know, and from ecosystem to ecosystem, from
Right.
city to city around the world. So you have Italians and this big Italian diaspora in Australia with Italian restaurants, and I'm sure they're making things which are authentically Italian, but also use local produce. And there's this interesting story about spaghetti carbonara, which I recently heard, which is one of
Oh
the
yeah.
one of the or Roman dishes. You would say, oh, how classically Roman this is. And
Right.
you have to use only the special kind of I don't know, it's pancetta or guanciale, which are different cuts of pork to use to fry
Right.
up.
Right.
And it turns out that, you know, I don't know if the story is apocryphal, but it's totally believable to me that it was American GIs who, you know, when they liberated Rome, had
Okay.
their knapsacks a ration of bacon, eggs, and that this sauce, this extremely simple improvised carbonara sauce, is really pulled together with
Right.
very American ingredients. So if
That's
you're
a great.
American wanting to make it, or Italian American, you don't need to be looking for the Italian guanciale.
Right.
I'm sure it is authentic, you know, to a certain way of making it. If you
Right.
use local bacon or you use local ingredients, you would not be necessarily inauthentic in making it.
Right.
And I found that an interesting story because
Yeah. I like the way that story makes it sort of accessible and modern, and it's not some, you know, high
yeah, it's not some
concept.
purist thing, and not to
Yeah.
denigrate that at all, because there are amazing traditions that in their, you know, in you know, you use the mozzarella produced in southern Italy, made from a certain kind of
Right. Buffalo.
cow, a certain kind of milk. That's, you know, inimitable, and what you make with that cannot be found elsewhere in the world. The same goes for these cheeses. Other wines. Do not want to generalize to the point that none of this makes any difference. It makes a tremendous difference.
Can I ask you a question about the live version of the cooking? When you're making for hundreds of people, are you following the same process, or are you doing different things? I think, I mean, I've never cooked spaghetti at any of our spaghetti dinners, which is really kind of amazing and stupid. But my sense is that you cook batches, but are, like, for the sauce or what you were describing earlier, is that the same with the larger quantities?
When I make the larger quantities, I have to say, and don't tell anybody this, please, I just have come down to making one sauce, the same sauce every time, which I reiterate. And I've been very happy to pass it on to other people who cook for spaghetti dinners whenever I can't, and they take it on, run with it, and I'm sure that it generally comes out very well. And people have riffed off and already put different kinds of pickled goods in it, because it really,
Right.
it's a very pickly kind of dish.
Right.
Oh, that's the timer for the pasta.
Oh,
let
great.
me strain it. I'll disappear from the camera for a second, because you don't need to see me labor over the sink, and I'll be back in just 20
Okay. Unless there's secrets of straining. I was thinking that when the spaghetti dinners started on in 309 East 9th Street, the 9th Street Theater started the spaghetti dinners in the 1980s, maybe. But I remember the spaghetti then was spaghetti aglio e olio. It was just a plain spaghetti with garlic. And especially our friend Amy Trumpeter kind of specialized in that type of spaghetti. And it was great. You know, it was quite wonderful, very simple. And this was when the 9th Street Theater had a storefront, actually a double storefront across from Veselka on 9th Street, between 1st and 2nd. And we'd open the door and play music, and it was really for the people in the block. They'd come in and have spaghetti. So how's it going, Roberto?
Oh yeah, so I strained the pasta, and it's right here. And as I said, I made the penne. So the idea is, before I put any kind of seasoning in this, I am going to take, you know, the rosemary and just put it in there. I'm going to take the same thing with the sage, put that in there.
Right.
I'll take some of this frozen abundant with the, you're going to go abundant with the leafy ones, or these sort of earthy herbs like the rosemary and the sage, and they're very leafy ones
Right.
like the basil and the parsley. And they've mixed it in completely dry.
Right.
Take a ladle, mix it up a little bit.
Great.
And as you can see, it really just makes the pasta green, and it sticks on
Nice.
the pasta. And actually, all those herbs maintain their integrity.
Okay.
Really, you can really taste that bouquet of herbs after putting in the tomato sauce. You don't get lost in tomato sauce.
Okay.
The cheese and do the same thing.
Okay.
And as you can see, I put in a kind of sort of nutty quality of cheese. I mean, it's a Parmigiano Reggiano, but it's I did it in the Cuisinart, which makes it a little chunkier. It's not
Nice.
kind of feathery quality. So you're left with that, which
Perfect.
smells very good. Then I take the it's at this point, I'm now going to switch over here.
Okay. I was thinking of inviting in our friends. Oh, yeah, got the onion. Stephen and Mark Sussman to partake in this.
First,
event.
Hey,
Hey,
I
it smells
will-
good.
I will
smells
remove the onion,
delicious. Ah,
Good,
and I'm
yeah.
left with this very watery kind of tomato puree.
Huh.
oh,
That's exactly how you want to have it. I'm going to transfer back to here. I'm going to take this glove, and I'm going to come over here, and I hope that I won't drop anything. And I'm going to take this, and
Ooh,
then
look at that.
And then I'm going to pour in also a little olive oil, very fresh.
Oh, okay.
Ooh.
Mm.
And then I mix it up. And the herbs stay attached.
That's a real revelation to me about the herbs. I don't know.
Yeah, it
Mark's
was when I saw it, which is why I always return to this recipe. And should have put a little salt in the sauce. The sauce could use a little salt before I put it in. That's not the best thing I just did now, putting salt in the pasta like that. You want to put it in the sauce. But, you know, the excitement of going live on TV the way I am right now, I forgot. So let me get a plate for Steve. So Steve, please. This is for Steve.
Oh,
Enjoy.
thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, it's delicious.
And
It's
then here's
delicious.
another plate.
I think in transmission it turned into spaghetti though.
It
That's
did.
weird.
That's
Like otherwise.
This is for Mark.
Huh. Wow. Thank you so much. Oh my God.
Great.
I've gotten so hungry watching you cook, you know?
Now I'm giving you a very big plate here.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh boy.
I didn't notice you putting shrimp in
Okay.
there either. That's
John.
a revelation.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
And finally, I'm going to make myself a little plate.
Yeah.
Really good.
Voila.
Okay, bon appetit.
Spaghetti. It's pasta with herbs. So enjoy.
Thank you, Roberto.
Thanks, Roberto.
Thank you, Roberto.
Great
Enjoy the
show.
rest of the show.
See you soon.
Okay. Yay. Hello to Caroline.
Well, folks, Steve and John, while you guys eat, and I hope everyone else out in the land of the internet will eat as well, now or later. I want to just say how excited we are about this benefit performance, a spaghetti dinner, and also a benefit performance for the collective of collectives and the collective of artists known as Building Stories. You just saw a whirlwind tour of our studio. It's our home base, it's our clubhouse, it's the art factory, it's a meeting space, and it's a giant storage shed, it's a workshop, all these things packed into a few beautiful rooms in an old supermarket building that's kind of teetering on the edge of the Gowanus Canal in Brooklyn. And it makes all the work and all the exchange between the artists and the collectives and the people who use that studio possible. And it's a magic place where a lot of ideas and techniques and tools and creative and political thinking rub off on everybody who walks in the door. So we're here to celebrate the artists that work there and to support the studio. And you'll be hearing more about that support, but I'm just gonna flash the benefit, the donation links. They're also in the Facebook comments lines, and you'll see them again tonight. So I think it may be time to introduce the first act. So I'm going to hand it off to Steve to do that.
Thank you, Mark. Get the.
That means I can eat a bit too.
Yes. So the first act, we've been working on Terror as Usual for the last 20 plus years, but we've never done one online. So this is a very first of us. It's a very rough draft of our first online Terror as Usual, episode 15, Tipping Point, with text by Sherelle Brown and Maya Angelou. Maya Angelou's poem On the Pulse of the Morning, which she spoke at the inauguration of Barack Obama, performed by Roberto Rossi, Kwang Yu Fong, yours truly, the New York Times, the angel of history, and the isolated collectivity of all great small workers. Here's episode 15 of Terror as Usual, The Tipping Point.
Rebus. 2 words. First word, 9 letters. Second word, 9 letters. Prisons are also founded on quelling worker rebellions. Prisons and police have baked into their DNA the purpose of creating this.
History, despite its wrenching pain, cannot be unlived, but if faced with courage, need not be lived again.
Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
Lift up your eyes upon this day breaking for you. Give birth again to the dream. Women, children, men. Do not be wedded forever to fear, yoked eternally to brutishness. The horizon leans forward, offering you space to place new steps of change. Take it into the palms of your hand. Mold it into the shape of your most private need. Sculpt it into the image of your most public self. Lift up your heart. Each new hour holds new chances for new beginnings. You may have the courage to look up and out and upon me, the rock, the river, the tree, your country.
Thank you. That's Great Small Works' first online Terra as usual in progress playing with efforts. In case you were wondering whose name was being scribbled on the board at the end of the Rebus section on that sort of chalkboard above of the Toy Theater stage, it was Sherelle Brown, who Roberto mentioned, a brilliant young activist and organizer from North Carolina. It was her insight that was being quoted as the cue to the Rebus, a compliant workforce. Our next presentation is by a really interesting artist, Raphael Mischler. He has a piece called Quarantine Stroll. Raphael works as a visual designer for theatrical productions in New York City, and Quarantine Stroll is a collaged cranky based on walks through his neighborhood during the beginning of social distancing. Raphael Mischler, Quarantine Stroll.
Wow, thanks, Raphael Mishler. Beautiful, beautiful work. And I'm speaking to you guys from Montreal, Quebec, on the north side of the border. But that really made me homesick for Brooklyn, I have to say. Our next work tonight is by the Box Cutter Collective. They are an extended family, Sam Wilson, Jason Hicks, Tom Cunningham, and Joseph Therian, of puppet makers, painters, performers, builders, educators, workers, union organizers, and all-around mischief makers who have been working together in various forms for 15 years. A series of questions for those not yet in favor of police and prison abolition is a picture performance by Thomas Cunningham. Box Cutter Collective.
Well, testing. So, while Steven is brushing his teeth after that wonderful pasta, I'm going to introduce the next act. The People's Puppets of Occupy Wall Street were founded in Zuccotti Park in the first 2 weeks of the occupation of New York City. I bet you remember that. It continues on as a collective that helps other activists build beautiful, effective visuals for actions. Masque of the Red Death 2020, created in collaboration with Jacqueline Wade and writer Tom Ross, is a chapter from People's Puppets of Occupy Wall Street's digital adaptation of the classic work of Edgar Allen Poe. The rich are partying, the pandemic.
At every Tom, Dick, and Joe, when offered some liquid refreshment, the lady never says no. Oh, the naughty lady, city lady, and down in the world, the naughty lady.
Why would 25 normal, hardworking people follow her lead for no good reason whatsoever?
That's her, right there. The loud black girl. They had to pin her down first to get her cuffed. Unforgettable.
Yeah, Bozo just called, says he's stuck in traffic out of Albany.
Politicians, never on time, and they never talk straight.
Yeah, it's a pain in the ass to deal with this clown, but what choice do we have?
Not violent. What they're doing is worse than violence.
Then they march into the courtroom with their self-righteous attitudes. After climbing out of gas-guzzling vans, perhaps she should question her own corruption.
The voice of my great-granddaughter. What's any of them as a grandparent?
Keeping people's lights on 365 days a year, that makes me a criminal?
I have no idea what real criminals would do to them. Or what they do to people pulling stunts like this in China or Russia.
Those bastards right there destroyed my property. Controls they super glued, they're like 10K a piece to replace. That's 100 grand. And what if the compressors had blown? Apparently this asshole has been making the rounds for years. If he'd stuck to corporate law, he'd be a millionaire by now.
Boo fucking who. If you don't want to have your nerves damaged by handcuffs, don't get arrested.
They should have to do dirty work for us for a year, just to pay me back.
Exactly. Bring back fucking slavery.
They need to have good jobs installing solar and wind and geothermal in these communities. And we're not against the workers that are doing this work. We're against the CEOs that are making hundreds of thousands of dollars.
The people gonna rise like the water. We gonna calm this crisis down. I hear the voice of my great-granddaughter saying keep it in the ground. The people gonna rise like the water.
I like that wonderful collaboration that People's Puppets of Occupy Wall Street is doing. The next performance is by Chinese Theater Works. Stephen Kaplan, who you just saw earlier, and Kwang Yu Fong are co-founders of Chinese Theater Works. They've collaborated together on dozens of theatrical productions that fuse Chinese opera with Western puppetry practice. Not too many people doing that in that context. A new shadow production by Stephen Kaplan and Kwang Yu Fong, The Warrior, is based on a Japanese Zen parable as interpreted by the great late master storyteller, and more people should know about this man, Ken Fight. The Warrior by Chinese Theater Works.
A fierce warrior once lived in China, a brilliant general, a genius on the battlefield. Hey, you big warrior, stop trampling our crops. Hey, you little pipsqueak, come and stop me. All right, let's fight. The more men the warrior killed, the more fame and honor he acquired, and the more empty he felt. There's got to be something better in life than this. This is stupid, all this killing. I've got to find a better life. Hey, you old farmer. Me? Do you know the meaning of life? I'm just an old pogey. I don't know nothing about meaning. You lived so long and you don't know life's meaning? What good are you? Hey, ask me about cows and corn, that stuff I know. But if you want to know about meaning, there's a holy man that lives on that mountain there. He might know. So the warrior climbed the mountain, and on top he found the holy man sitting in silence. Are you the holy man? I've got a question for you. All my life I've been dealing in death. I want to know the right way. I need to know. I have to know. If you don't tell me the right way right now, I'll chop your head off! That's hell. Huh? Thank you. Thank you. And the warrior came back down the mountain, completely changed. He never raised a sword again. He even became a vegetarian and moved to Brooklyn.
Hi, that was Chinese theater works, of course. Ken Fight. I posted in the chat a link to Ken Fight, work about Ken Fight, information about Ken Fight, which who's an amazing performer. So I one of the things I appreciate about this work is its reference to Ken Fight. We wanted to turn now to Jenny Romaine, our Great Small Works member in Brooklyn. Okay, Jenny's not here. Okay, very good. We are going to do a pitch. We're going to ask you if you're interested to help support this work, the work of Building Stories, by making a donation. And I think the link to the donation page that Mark showed a image of earlier will be on the chat column here. So let's say that Jenny comes back later to give a astounding presentation about our life in the capitalist world and how we're looking to pay the rent. We will go next to Mark and Stephen then, I think. Oh no, is Jenny here? Jenny's here. Hi, Jenny. So we won't go to Mark and Stephen.
Hi, everybody. I'm sorry for my delay. I was having an issue because I put on false eyelashes and I wasn't wearing a wig. And then it was like, I can't wear these lashes without a wig. And then I put on the wig and then I was like, I have to do the pitch. And you see, these are what you call high class problems in the moment of this freaking X show that we're calling reality at this time. However, as we know, as the essential workers, visionary world creators that we, the artists, are, and of course everybody else is doing their part too, but it's sort of like why God put us here. It's like to tell stories, to help us weave our way out of this mess. So anyway, the reason I was late is because I was having this issue and then I had to eat. Anyway, I'm here now and I'm here to make a pitch. And my pitch, I'm actually going to read, but I just wanted to frame it was, during this pandemic period, I was lucky enough as this cisgendered, educated, white individual that I am to, with a little help from my friends, get the federal benefits. And so I was getting money every week, which was in fact more than I earned normally as an artist. And I used that to show up for the movement. And it was quite incredible. So I was sort of fascinated by this moment and the way being subsidized enabled us to like actually be part of a human-centric approach to crisis. So I'm just gonna read this now. It's a little abbreviated, but it's the pitch to encourage you to throw some ducats at Building Stories. So without further ado, the pitch. I already told you the first part. So I'm going to go on and say that one of the projects using this cash that was enabled through federal sponsorship, that one of the projects that was supported by us, or these funds supported, was the Naming the Lost Memorials Project, which was a public grieving campaign. Since May, a team of Great Small Works and Building Stories artists in cahoots with folklorists, historians, witches, community leaders, and activists have been creating public spaces for New Yorkers of all kinds to mourn the devastating losses brought on by COVID-19. We've worked with undocumented essential workers organizations, nursing home workers, families, neighborhood groups, and clergy to create beautiful public ephemeral spaces where people can grieve. Each installation is tailored to the needs of the bereaved community. If the mourners choose to link their sadness to the current political context, we support that. Leaders in directly affected communities have asked us to create memorials at their actions. Some are pre-made, others are made on site by loved ones. Each object holds the name of a person lost to COVID, imprinted with the word essential. It has been a season of what Douglas Crimp called mourning and militancy. The labor of mourning could not have taken place without building stories and federal funds that some artists have been able to gather. We have gathered our acorns, but the rent for building stories is high. And if you're one of those New Yorkers who earned more money than usual from pandemic relief funds, would you consider making a donation of $25 to Building Stories? A smart person once told me, when you got money, buy things. And so I ask, if you have a little federal money extra, could you buy into our mission to keep the art excellent, the movement strong, and the space available for the work yet to come? Thank you for considering. And Naming the Lost will be producing a whole new round of memorials, big, small, private, public, for the week of September 11th as part of a labor of mourning action from September 2nd through 11th. More on that in the chat. But thank you for considering donating to Building Stories, to keeping the work excellent, to keeping it at the heart of social and political life. And with that, I say adieu and bon appetit.
Thank you, Jenny Romaine. Wow.
Thanks, Jenny. Well, once again, the link for donating will be in the Facebook comments. And now it's my great pleasure to introduce Alexandra Zevin, an interdisciplinary artist working with collage and video, and a member of the People's Puppets of Occupy Wall Street. Alexandra is also a member of the Sing in Solidarity Chorus and a co-facilitator of But a Shadow of Myself. And she'll be working with Morgan Jeunesse.
Yes, Morgan Jeunesse, who contributes the voice for the Angry Fish, attempts multiple acts of artistic and activist dramaturgy. The Luxury You Deserve seeks to reconcile anger and panic in response to recent political events with an understanding of economic structures that influence history.
Troll Rex, your leer lords over your hustle. Yodeler testes, your lesser shovers tussle, rustle, sell Rolexes. Ruddy vertex, you rusty luster, you russet sot, rose vexer, sore terror. Tuxed doxer, rudder deluxe, Telly's hex, sooty hustler, rule the roost, fear over overlord, seethe less, your tease, your lux-heeled heedless revelers, your lousy dry-hole desert, to hell!
Thank you, Alexandra Zevin and Morgan Jeunesse, for the luxury you deserve. That was really interesting.
Yeah,
I wanted to remind people that all of this program will be available online on our Facebook page, so you can watch it later. I came in and started talking over the credits. The next presentation is by someone very near and dear to us. What Kind of Bear Am I is part of a live show called The Revival of the Uzda Gravediggers. It is conceived and directed by Great Small Works member Jenny Romaine, with songs by Jeff Berner, Belarusian poet Maria Martsievich, if I pronounce that right, Lipka Tatar historian Serhei Charusky, and Yiddishists Ben Klein and Sadie Gold Shapiro.
And the production team dedicates this video to our chumrads in Belarus who are currently redefining their social world in the midst of ruthless authoritarian oppression. All the Jews, Muslims, and bears send love and solidarity.
Rolling.
This is a story. It's not the story, but one of many stories circling round and round in the ancient oak forests in Belarus. Pastoral, birch forests, fields, and open sky. We're going towards Uzda, a town close to Minsk in the Belarusian countryside, also known as White Russia, sometimes known as Lita in Yiddish. Ancient trees and deep time. We come into town. And here we see the post office, as psychedelic as you might have anticipated. And then we see the old wooden synagogue. And over there is the mosque. Oh, and let's get a little closer in, and we can see that the cemetery outside the mosque sits exactly next to a Jewish cemetery. It seems how my teachers somehow forgot that in such a mostly ordinary town, there would be a Jewish cemetery right next to a Lipka Muslim Tatar cemetery. This is one story. Of course, there are thousands of stories that can be told about this mostly ordinary town of Uzda, but this town had an extraordinary funeral industry. You can see the body. You can see the mourners. Those ladies in the geometric orange outfits, those are the professional mourners of the town, known as kluggerns. Between the pantheists and the Christians and the Jews and the Muslims, everybody dies. So everybody needs a professional mourner to weep for those who are too sad to weep. Kluggerans were completely organized. They all met together and had a guild of professional mourners. And they met just outside the cemetery in a small red inn. And it so happens that this amazing Red Inn, which was a tavern, was run by bears. And you may say, a tavern run by bears? Well, it happens that there were so many bears in this town and the nearby town of Smogon that if you would get off a train, the porters that would carry your luggage would in fact be bears. Because you see, they had a bear training academy. But let me not go on. Let's go now to the tavern and hear about what kinds of bears these really are.
You ask me what kind of bear am I? You ask me what kind of bear am I hardly know myself, but I suppose I'll try to tell you what kind of bear am I. They took me from the woods when I was small. Played the music, made me dance on the hot, hot coal. Said I almost sounded human when I'd bleed and cry. And you ask me what kind of bear am I? You ask me what kind of bear am I? You ask me what kind of bear am I? You ask me what kind of bear am I? Graduated with a master in humanity from the Smogon Bear Academy. Then master and I, we traveled here and there. Every prince and peasant loves a jaunty dancing bear. But I'm not so jaunty now, so I suppose I see why. You ask me what kind of bear am I? You ask me what kind of bear am I? You ask me what kind of bear am I? You ask me what kind of bear am I? I ate my master one day, and my freedom I gained with a knife and a fork, just as I had been trained. Had to use a knife and fork, just like people do. Master pulled all my teeth out, it made them difficult to chew. I passed. I passed. I passed the checkpoints in disguise, using clippers and hair dye. And you ask me what kind of bear am I? You ask me what kind of bear am I? You ask me what kind of bear am I? You ask me what kind of bear am I? Now I work the tavern and we share every coin. It pays to the necessities, I can't complain. Wouldn't live now in the woods, even if I had the chance. I pour the drinks, I hear the music, and I try not to dance. But sometimes I just can't help myself, no matter how I try. You ask me what kind of bear am I? You ask me what kind of bear am I? You ask me what kind of bear am I? Why don't you tell me what kind of bear am I? You tell me what kind of bear am I?
This is a story It's not the story, but one of many stories circling round and round in the ancient oak forests in Belarus.
The revival of the Uzda Gravediggers. Look out for next installments, folks. There's going to be more bears. Bears have a very important role in the history of puppetry, but we're not going to get sidetracked right now. Another member of the Building Stories family, Nathan Lee, is a member of the People's Puppets of Occupy Wall Street, and a composer, an animator, and an activist. He's composed music for over 300 plays at theaters around the country. And this video animation, I Know What It Means to Be Free, was created in collaboration with Israel Adiemi Adeniji, who spent 190 days in ICE detention, and the Brooklyn Community Bail Fund's Let My People Go campaign to release our immigrant neighbors in detention. I know what it means to be free.
I appreciate all the air I breathed since the day I was released, because for 190 days, I went through a point where I thought I was going to lose it. I thought I was going to die. I was lucky to get 12,000. And this bond money is at the discretion of the judge. The judge just said, okay, I'm giving you 5,000 bond, I'm giving you 12,000, maybe depending on the mood that day. I know a guy there, he's been there now for 1 year, 2 months, but he's still there. He got 25,000 bond, he couldn't pay that. And I'm so grateful to Brooklyn Bill Bond because they don't know me and they invested in me. And for every other person who don't know me and contribute in one way to the other to the Brooklyn Bill Bond, it was 4 officers who came to arrest me. Say, yeah, we just want to take him to our precinct. He's going to come back in another 2 hours. And the moment they took me to their precinct, the first question they asked me is, are you born here? And I said, no. And all of us that said we are not born here, they took us straight to ICE. The moment you are detained, you have no right. To suit them, they tell you you are in jail. You say you don't have any right. But when you try to complain, they say, no, you are not in jail, you are in detention. So when you get there, you'll be forced to work. Yeah, they pay you $4 a day, and you work from 5 in the morning to 1 p.m. It really shattered my family. And now that I'm released, they are really happy, especially my mom, my daughter, and a couple of kids that I know that I have. So if I take you to Essex County and I take you across all dorms, and we can have all the poor conditions of things documented like in a picture and send out, people will rise up. When you are sick, you don't get, prompt medical assistance. Sometimes you have to wait for days. Sometimes your condition deteriorates. What makes immigrant different? COVID killed everyone. I could be infected, you could be, anybody could be infected. Because I've listened to those who feel and who are strongly convinced that the problem of this country is problem of immigrants. So my message to Americans who care about immigrants, who understand that we all need each other, is that they should come together and put every everything they have in reviewing these policies. I want people to rise up and help people who are detained. I've been released now for over a year. I don't know what it means to be detained. When I got released, I know what it means to be free. Let's get him out.
Thank you, Nathan. And thanks to all the members of Building Stories who've contributed to tonight's programming. And here's to you, L'chaim. So help us keep the space where all this work is possible so we can keep churning out necessary art. Artists are essential workers, so help us in our work. Now, the next program, Marina Saplina, is a transdisciplinary performing artist, disability advocate, and scholar in the medical health humanities, whose work is dedicated to bringing puppetry animation into medicine and restoring animacy, anima, to all bodies. Body poem number 1, That Place of Freedom, is a short experimental meditation exploring body, place, breath, sound, and image. And she is performing it for us on video.
Hi, Spaghetti Dinner and Puppetry community, Marina here. So I was going to share a new short piece with you last week, but then we had a Zoom kerfuffle. I've left New York City and I'm in the middle of a rainforest in Appalachia. So instead, what I'm going to do is share with you some of the ways that I've been working with puppetry in medicine, medical education, and disability justice. I think a whole lot of the puppetry community is kind of curious what I've been up to for almost 8 years now, and I thought this would be a beautiful way to share it with you. So here we go.
This puppet was designed and built by Dori Bend and I in the first year of Reimagine Medicine, a program I co-founded at Duke University. The design of the puppet came from imagery that emerged from a movement meditation that I led the medical students through. For example, one student saw a tall mountain with many winding and crisscrossing roads that felt like they all led to one place in the distance. He felt the image in his diaphragm, and so we built the body to be as soft as a diaphragm and symbolized the meeting point of the roads with a button. Another student felt like a consciousness floating in an endless field of bright yellow flowers. My work is about helping medical students, clinicians, and honestly the medical professional as a whole learn about embodiment, illness, disability, and healing through puppetry animation. What I mean by embodiment is the integration of imagination, breath, body, mind, history, and spirit. Through puppetry practice, I teach clinicians, and I also work with people with disabilities in how imagination, imagery, poetry, and dreams can be sources of insight and methods of knowing, because the imagination is essential for healing that is quite distinct from curing. For the Western gaze, this work often sounds very esoteric, but for the many cultures, including indigenous cultures, who have been subjected to colonial violence and Western scientific hegemony, ritual, dream, and imagination are accepted forms of knowing. In Western medicine, the body and its biology, it's not self-aware, it is inanimate. But illness, the body, our breath, our history, it is all living. and puppetry animation is profoundly powerful in entering into difficult, inexpressible, often beyond regular language territories. I'm also very interested in puppetry's capacity to rupture normativity, to form dream bodies, wild bodies, multi-being, multi-storied, multi-layered bodies. Training future doctors to find the life and breath of the body in front of them, not some idealized version of a body, is a practice that is essential for disability justice and care in medicine. My work has started opening a new path for the art of puppetry, and I really view this as a sacred art form that is an exquisite practice for restoring embodied care in medicine.
Thank you, Marina Zaplina. You were going to be doing that live when we had originally scheduled this event to take place last Friday, but it's really stunning what you've been able to do since you went out in the woods in Pennsylvania to make this piece about your work with disability. Your work as a disability advocate. I'm here before we introduce the next element of our program, the next performance, the next piece in our program, to ask you to donate. That's why we're doing this. It's a fundraiser for building stories, of which Great Small Works is a part. And I think you can see so far how interesting all of this work is from all of these different groups. Great Small Works started out in a studio at Charas El Bohio in the East Village before Mayor Giuliani started taking away cultural centers and community gardens. And we moved to Brooklyn through a series of places. We're in Dumbo while that was being gentrified, sort of helped with the gentrification because that's how we were used by the developers. And then as crunch time came, said, well, we know these different artists we've been working with, like People's Puppets and others. Let's try to share a space because it's getting the rent is getting super high. And so we started to work together with People's Puppets and other groups. And since we moved to the space in Gowanus, which you saw being portrayed in Maria Zaplina's film at the beginning of this program, we've managed to draw in even more people to work with us. And it's a really positive moment, I think, or it's a positive aspect of where we are now, the COVID situation, and then the uprisings after the murder of George Floyd have changed things so profoundly. And it's super hard to know what to do in terms of art and performance and politics and activism in some ways. And Building Stories has grown to include all of the different artists you've seen, all of the different activists whose work you've seen this evening. So still trying to pay the rent. It's super difficult in the current economic situation. And that's why we're doing this, to help us survive, to help all these different artists survive. It's we have a common space for rehearsals that we all share, but our actual little, not warrens, but our little studios are pretty small, but we're making it work. So if you are interested in supporting this kind of activist work coming out of Brooklyn at the moment, but extending its reach all over the place, please make a donation at the place on the chat box. Okay, I did it, did the donation pitch. So now, one of our more recent Building Stories members is Jacqueline Wade, who I first met at the Ballard Institute, where I work as the director during our Living Objects African American Puppetry Symposium in the spring of 2019, so long ago. And Jackie came and started filming all of the participants. And I'm really glad I got to know her. And then to my surprise, it ends up that she's joined us at Building Stories. Jacqueline Wade is a professional hybrid filmmaker, storyteller, actress, puppeteer, fabricator, activist, and a graduate student in the MFA Integrated Media Arts program at Hunter College. Her film, A Slice of History, is a multimedia triptych perspective on human zoos, Teddy Roosevelt, and the Young Lords, created, written, directed, and edited by Jacqueline. A Slice of History by Jacqueline Wade.
Live human beings were put on display. These were human zoos. They were masterminded by scientists and designed to demonstrate the superiority of the white race.
I am the Apollo of Belvedere. I represent the perfect white man. See my beautiful body? Petrus Camper discovered me. Oh, how I love a reflection. Such beauty, such poise. Welcome to the monthly Statue Journal. Today we are highlighting Theodore Teddy Roosevelt and his favorite horse, RLB, outside of the Museum of Natural History. What does RLB mean?
I represent 3 of Theodore Roosevelt's favorite horses, Rain in the Face, Little Texas, and Blasting.
What do you mean?
The sculptor who created me and the others had a terrible habit of combining things.
Just look at me. I don't have any idea what tribe I come from.
I have no idea what part of Africa I come from. I have no tribal marks on my face.
Why, you are every African, and you represent every engine. It's a small world after all. 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 It's a small, small world.
Yeah! Mr. Small World? No one knows who any of us are. However, everybody knows that it is Theodore Roosevelt sitting tall on his horse. I have the lowest status here.
Please elaborate.
The Native American and the African stand by Theodore Roosevelt's side. They all have higher status than me. I am saying that the statue represents oppression. I have been a beast of burden carrying Theodore Roosevelt since 1940 in front of this blasted museum.
What are you complaining about? You were given the opportunity to travel the world during my various adventures and explorations.
You mean go on your various exploitations?
How dare you?
Which horse am I? Let's start there, Teddy.
Why, you are...
Oh, you can't figure it out either.
Look, I didn't create you. Blame the sculptor. Oh, what's going on now? Neither of you sound happy. I don't have a problem with any of this.
Of course you don't. You have an identity.
I've obviously hit a nerve here. Let's move on, shall we? How do you feel about the city of New York wanting to take the statue down in the wake of George Floyd's murder?
It's about time. Do you know how many years people have been protesting for our removal?
You're not even supposed to be speaking. I'm the only one who is supposed to speak.
That's my point. Only what you says matter. This is a man who believes in eugenics.
Of course I do. If white families don't create big families, it would mean the end of the great white race. And that would be suicide.
See what I mean?
At least you didn't have it as bad as my people. Why, I love Native Americans.
I'm out of here.
Is that why you evacuated us off our lands, so that you could have your precious national park? Heard enough. Don't you know who I am? I am the Rough Rider. I was mayor of New York. I was the 26th president of the United States of America. I won a Pulitzer. I published over 8 books.
Yes. We've heard enough over and over again. The bigger-than-life man speaks again. You sit higher on your horse, taller than any of us.
Why, it represents my importance. No more needs to be said on this matter. The great conservation president speaks again. The great white master over brown and black people. Don't disrespect me. This statue represents my friendliness to all races.
To all races? Can you tell me what tribe I represent? You have not included one detail of who I really am.
Well, you represent all black people in Africa.
A tame savage who carries your gun and cape.
I never said that.
I am saying it now.
I didn't make you. Blame the artist.
I am part of a proud tribe of people who have a culture and a history. The artist has removed all of that.
Look, I have no more time for any of this. The reality is, you are low on the Darwinian scale. So what does it matter what bush tribe you come from? Oh, this conversation is getting real problematic.
Have you forgotten the human zoos?
Yes, the human zoos were my favorite. Otabenga was perfect in the cage with the other monkeys in the Bronx Zoo.
He was a man like you and me.
No, he was the missing link. Part animal and little human with a tiny brain.
No, you are a missing link. Ungawa, Black Collar, destroy!
How dare you? How dare you? How dare you?
We are not waiting for the mayor to remove you. We are removing you now!
Well, it looks like we have a new statue.
Wait a minute. I don't think so. Neither one of you is real.
I am real.
So am I.
You represent the artist's stereotypical image, white gaze, not real indigenous, Native American, nor African people. You got to go also.
What?
It's long overdue.
Got to go.
Let the people decide what we want here.
Power to the people. Power to the people. Power to the people. Power to the people. Peace out.
Well, this ends another fascinating magazine story. Until next time, this is Apollo of Belvedere.
a big church, because you are Christians, because this church is not open at all during the week. And what we ask you for is for space, that's all. We will supply the manpower, we will supply the food for the children. All we ask is for the space of this church, this community. Now, we don't think that you people are our enemies. We do think that the Reverend who called the police in, who has had the police here every day since we've been here and would not allow us to speak, that Reverend is an enemy. And he's not a Christian.
A Slice of History by Jackie Wade. Thank you so much. That last section, the Young Lords, visionary activists and pioneers in a way who took over the building that later became the home of the first Great Small Works studio. So really the prehistory of the Building Stories studio is connected to that last section. Thank you, Jackie Wade. Nathan Lee, again, a member of the People's Puppets of Occupy Wall Street, has another video stop motion animation work, the Immortan Joe Memorial Highway. It's a video that Nathan made for a tune by his band, Nathan Lee and the Crisis Actors, the Immortan Joe Memorial Highway.
Steel yourself and settle for the silence bittersweet. You can't take it with you, so this might as well be defeat. Good intentions never matter. The bad result is always sung, like green Siberia after the fall. In the end, you will be crowned victorious. In the end, you will be king of nothing. Welcome to the feast. I think we both know what's on the plate. You are dead, the least you could. Too little, too much too late. So goodbye Paris, goodbye Kyoto, goodbye east to western coast. Check the stock price for the check roads. In the end, you will be crowned victorious. Yeah, in the end, you will be king of nothing. All I want is a lot, all I want is a lot, all I want is a lot more than what I got. All I want is a lot, all I want is a lot, all I want is a lot more than nothing. Here's a plaque to celebrate the best thing you ever did. An empty stretch of highway just for you and all your kids. In the end, you will be crowned victorious. In the end, you will be king of nothing. In the end, you will be crowned victorious. In the end, you will be king of nothing.
Oh my God, thank you, Nathan. Really cool. Okay, now we go onward and upward. The next presentation is by Box Cutter Collective. Yes, a bunch of people who joined up with Great Small Works in the Dumbo days to share their space. So here they are with some sage advice on how to overthrow a statue. It's a how-to toy theater instruction video by the great Jason Hicks.
Our country is full of lots of monuments to racist whack jobs, like this guy from the Civil War, and this guy, a slave trader, though he's in England, but you know, close enough. And this guy, a genocidal maniac. In 2020, we still got monuments to him. Why? Well, we know why. It's our country's a little fucked up. And this guy, who are his friends? There's no friends of Christoph. They didn't even spell his name right. Don't you spell check the name before you put it in concrete? Well, obviously they didn't. So they're still up and all over the country. Some places are deciding to take them down and do the right thing, professionally, with a crane. Sometimes they do it in the secret of night, so that the white supremacists don't come and try to protest with lots of crazy guns. But sometimes they don't, so people have to just get their friends together and do it themselves. It's satisfying. Sometimes we try to burn the statue first, which is hard because statues are usually made of concrete or metal, which doesn't burn very easily. However, if they were made of paper like this, it wouldn't be so hard. But you gotta do it quick before the cops come. Sometimes people like to get together and give them a new paint job first. This has been happening recently, and they usually look a lot better. And then it's time to take them away. So you gather all your friends, and you get some good rope, because statues are hard to move. Sometimes it usually takes several hundred of you. And then you drag it down to the river, and 1, 2, 3. And we rejoice. Sometimes the statues, they may seem scared, but they're not. They're statues. They feel nothing. Sometimes you do have to take their heads off, because that way they won't come back to life like a zombie. And then you take them on down to your favorite pond and toss them in. What happened to the heads when you cut them off? No one really knows. So, get your friends together and take them down by whatever means necessary.
Thank you, Box Cutter Collective. How to Overthrow a Statue. The next performance, the next piece, the next video is by the Inanimate Intimists, Ali Goss and Liz Oakley, who animate objects in order to explore their inner thoughts and desires, and have performed on their fire escape, from inside a bathtub, on their stove, and on their stoop. And now, pencils and erasers, the future of pigs.
Hello, I'm Professor Pig, and welcome to my course, The Power of Costume Change, to explore the past, present, and future of who we are, who we were, and who we could be. This week's topic is something that has been troubling me for a few months and has to do with my species. I've heard a lot of chatter about pigs recently, and it hasn't had anything to do with me or any of my compassionate, intelligent pig siblings. No, it has been about some people doing some very terrible things who are being called pigs because of the harm they do. These people are the police, and I feel that they are giving pigs a very bad name. It turns out people have been calling police officers pigs for many years because the police have been doing harm for a long time. So I wanted to get to the root of how these police people came to be and how we can explore their function and identity through the magic of costume change. This is Greg, who is playing the part of the police officer and will be our model for this presentation. Throughout history, the character of the police officer has worn many costumes and gone by many names, but he's always been the same character deep down. The character of the police officer exists not to protect people as they claim, but to uphold a fundamentally unequal society. Let's take a trip through time and space to visit some of these versions of the police officer. Greg, are you ready for your first quick change? The London Metropolitan Police, or bobbies, founded in 1829, are considered by many to be the first modern police force. In the new industrial era, workers were unhappy, and as their labor was exploited, movements sprung up across the country to fight for workers' rights. In response, the British Home Secretary created a force to protect company property and put down strikes. In other words, to keep the workers down. So, there you have it. The central goal of the police was to maintain economic inequality. But long before the bobbies, in the United States, the character of the police officer had existed under a different name. Let's look at the slave patrol. Slave patrols existed in the South to control Black people, both enslaved and free. From 1704, more than a century before the bobbies. Under law, most white men, even those who didn't own people, were required to serve on the slave patrol and given the authority to dispense corporal punishment on the spot, usually with a whip. The potential of enslaved people to gather, organize, and resist caused anxiety among whites, and so slave patrols especially policed the mobility of enslaved people in the public sphere. The slave patroller embodied an essential component of the police officer character, surveilling and controlling the Black community. When the slave patrol system was abolished alongside slavery, this function of the police character did not disappear. New professional police forces in the South were also primarily concerned with controlling and suppressing the Black community. Vagrancy laws and Black codes were used as an easy way to arrest Black people and force them into the exploitative sharecropping system or into forced prison labor. Meanwhile, in the North, professional police forces had existed since the 1930s, formed, like the bobbies, to manage the growing population of industrial workers. After slavery ended, the Black population of northern cities was also growing, and these police forces also became very concerned with upholding racial hierarchy. So, once again, we see the character of the police officer in another costume upholding an unjust economic and social system. Now let's travel across the country to Texas, where the police officer will don a new costume and show us how they also have oppressed Native Americans and Mexican Americans. The Texas Rangers were established in 1823, even before Texas was a part of the U.S. The Rangers had one mission: to protect the interests of newly arriving white colonists by enacting violence against indigenous and Mexican people. Mexicans and Native Americans who resisted Ranger authority could be beaten, arrested, or intimidated, and many were killed. In 1918, Rangers massacred 15 unarmed Mexican villagers and were never charged for the murders. Sounds familiar, right? Today, the Texas State Police Department is still called the Texas Rangers. No big costume change needed for that one. What other costumes can we explore? The Pennsylvania State Police Force, formed in 1905, was the first in the country, founded to control resisting workers, shifting the cost burden from the factory owners to the public coffers. But peeling back that costume, we find the force was modeled after the imperialist Philippines constabulary, using the same techniques of espionage and suppression used in the Philippines. The U.S. has, after all, been called the policeman of the world. Today, professional police forces have grown with bloated budgets and modern laws that criminalize poverty and protect property. They target Black people, Indigenous people, people of color, and anyone who tries to challenge their power. The violence hasn't stopped. The police murders and brutality haven't stopped, and we find ourselves in the midst of a popular uprising against it. Some people have proposed that if we simply make some tweaks to the police's costume, they may behave in a more equitable way. One reform many have pushed for is cameras. Police departments have poured millions into police body cameras, but so far, cameras have not seemed to prevent police from murdering Black people in plain sight. And more often than not, when the footage is needed, the cameras have mysteriously been turned off. Another reform is community policing. Having police officers embedded in the local communities, playing ball with the kids, and hearing community bond seems like a good idea in theory. But in reality, police have no power to address systemic racism or poverty, and only have the power of punitive enforcement such as ticketing and arrests. And none of these reforms do anything to address the fact that these days, more often than not, those of us protesting in the streets most often see the policeman in this costume. As long as there are police, they're going to uphold an oppressive system. And as long as they're doing that, they're going to be rightfully despised. And as long as they are despised, they are going to be called pigs. And I cannot see that continuing. And rather than thinking of another derogatory nickname for them, or wasting time explaining why real pigs like me are amazing, I propose that this is an issue costuming cannot solve and that we get rid of them altogether. We will abolish this character and all of their costumes. Poof! Oh, Greg, you're still there and in your underwear. Oh, what's that? You want a different character to play in a new costume? I have an idea. Greg, you can be a mime in the newly formed City Mime Corps. That's right. The mimes have health benefits, a pension, and absolutely no power over anyone other than the power of suggestion. And it's perfect for you since you seem to prefer to stay quiet. Ready? Wow, you look amazing. You know, you're not the first former police officer to become a mime. Did you know that in Bogota in the 90s, the mayor fired all of the traffic cops and instead hired experienced mimes to help manage traffic? Yes, and all of the 3,000 former traffic cops were offered the opportunity to be re-educated as mimes. And about 400 said yes. Well, folks, that's our presentation. I look forward to seeing you in the future where there are no police officers and the $6 billion NYPD budget has been redistributed to fund universal housing, education, healthcare, and food. And perhaps also the newly formed New York Department of Mimes, Clowns, Puppeteers, and Other Performing Fools. Thank you.
Thank you, Allie and Liz, the inanimate intimists. Great information. I actually saw those street crossing guard mimes in Sao Paulo in Brazil, and that's some pretty powerful traffic direction, I have to tell you. It's great. Great use of that population. Well, I'm pleased to announce the very last show of this incredible evening. The work is by Kim Fraczek, a co-founder of the People's Puppets of Occupy Wall Street. And it is an emotional observation of a mourning dove tending to new eggs during a storm right outside her Brooklyn window during the COVID-19 lockdown. This is Surviving the Storm, a shadow puppet show. Kim Fraczek.
One of the lessons I've learned, and something that I use a lot now, is how to survive a storm. I nearly died up there, in one of the worst winter storms recorded. The trees taught me that the way to make it through those storms, and the storms of life, is to stay rooted and centered, but not rigid. The trees and branches that try too hard to stand strong and straight are the ones that break. The only ones that make it through are the ones that know to bend and flow and let go. So I've been using that now in my life. I use it when I'm being barraged by the media, by grassroots activists, by mainstream community, by everything. I just bend and flow. When I see the wind coming, I loosen up and get ready to get blown, and then I kind of flex back into place. And I'm ready to get up the next morning and do it all over again.
Kim Fraczek, Surviving the Storm. Thanks, everybody.
And thank you. Oh, I'm
Thank
gonna
you.
take my tie off.
We wanted to make a final mention. If you'd like to make a donation to Building Stories, the recipient or the focus of our benefit, there's the link, kind of like nicely green screen that Mark's holding up. And this program will be available on our Great Small Works Facebook page for I guess for the near future, forever. And people wanted to see some individual videos by the artists, so I don't. Maybe we can try to share that information. But now you know these artists, and you can be aware of their work. So now we want to take a bow, right, and say thank you.
Folks.
Take our time.
Now we want to bring in all of the performers, all of our Building Stories folks, Joe Therian.
Yay.
Wow, Ali and Liz.
Yay.
Are there more people coming? I guess so. Is this it? Should we take our bow right now? Oh no, we got more people coming in. There's Becca. Great. Should we? What about our technical person, Sarah Goshman? I wonder if they can. Yes, there. Okay.
Hey, Sarah.
Thank you. Are others coming in more, or is this the company? Some people went to bed. Okay.
Hooray!
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Yay.